Thank you, friends. You may be seated. Before we begin, just a gentle reminder for those of you who have a cell phone or pager, if we could please take a moment, turn on silent. On behalf of the family, I want to thank everybody for joining us here in the chapel, and of course, those who are watching on the live stream. Officiating our service today is Chaplain Rhonda Weiner. Chaplain will now approach the family to perform the ancient tradition of Kriya.
Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Ezri me'im Adonai Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim va'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is our guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning to honor the life of Doris Rosenfeldt France. Doris was born March 26, 1939, and she died April 25th, 2025. She died peacefully at home with her nurse, her caregiver Maria, and her daughter Eileen present. Doris grew up on Chicago's North Side in Albany Park, and we used to laugh together about this because I also grew up in Albany Park. However, we went to competing high schools. So that was a ribbing for the two of us. She began at Roosevelt High School, but when Doris was just getting started in high school, her father suddenly died. And Doris and her brother were devastated by this loss. Her mother later moved them to Rogers Park, where she then completed her senior year of high school at Sullivan High School. She met and married Floyd Dennis France, who always went by Dennis, except for business. There he was called F. Dennis. She said he never really loved the name Floyd, and so they called him Dennis. Then they had Eileen and Marcia, and their little family was complete. Even in the last days of her life, when Doris and I would talk about her life, we always ended up talking about her daughters. She was a mom. sharing her worries for her girls and wishes for their lives to be full and happy. I remember commenting to her as we talked about this day, her concern about how you two would be feeling. I told her that being a mother never ends, and she commented that she felt that was her most important role in life, her family. I'm going to call on her daughter, Eileen, to come and speak, followed by her beloved son-in-law, Jonathan, and her Marcia.
Thank you all for being here today. Before I begin, I want to thank Maria and Sally, my mother's caregivers, Denise, the nurse from the Journey Care hospice nurse, Megan, the hospice social worker, and all of the Journey Care staff who cared for both my mother and our family over the past weeks. Our family is very grateful to all of you for making sure that my mother was surrounded with love and comfort in her last weeks of life, and that she was extremely well cared for, and for the support that you have provided to us as well. My relationship with my mother was not easy. We loved each other, but we often struggled to understand one another. And that was very painful to both of us. I regret the hurt that we caused one another and wish we had found a way to be more generous and forgiving of one another. Her love didn't always look the way I wanted it to, but I do know that she loved me and that she knew that I loved her. And although I can't pretend we had the kind of relationship that either of us might have wished, that is not what I want to remember. I want to remember my mother as a whole person, a person who worked very hard to build the life that she wanted, often overcoming obstacles that would have utterly defeated almost anybody else. One example that's always been very salient to me throughout my life is that my mother had always wanted to go to graduate school. But for whatever reason, when she finished college and graduated, she wasn't able to go right away. And then she met my father, and life kind of happened. She had children and a family, and then finally, when she was well into her 30s, my mother decided to return to graduate school and get her PhD and pursue what was really her life dream of becoming a clinical psychologist. And that was such an unusual thing for a woman at that time, especially. And I can now see how hard it must have been and how much determination it had to have taken to raise a family and complete like a really demanding graduate program that required not only coursework, but clinical hours, a dissertation. And of course, I wasn't able to see this as a child, but as an adult, I really admire and I respect the persistence and the drive and the dedication that it must have taken her to get through that program and to establish a new career in midlife while also raising a family. My mother was married to my father for 40 years until he passed away in 2000. And of course, a lot happens over the course of 40 years. And during that time, Marcia and I grew up, and we went to college, and we established our own careers. And I just know how proud she was of my sister Marcia and of her incredible intelligence and her success as a chemist and an academic. And also during that time, I met and I married Jonathan, who my mother absolutely adored. And I have always believed that once he came into the family, Jonathan was her favorite child. My mother also loved being a grandmother to my children, Isaac, Asher, and Avital. And I'm really so glad that she was able to live to see them to be becoming the independent adults and just all around awesome people who they are today. And my oldest son, Isaac, who's the one who of my children who's not able to be here today because he and his wife, Tamar, are expecting my mother's first great-grandchild in just a few weeks. And my mother was so excited when I told her that she would be a great-grandmother. I mean, she was just really so happy. And I wish that she could have lived just a little bit longer so that she could have been here to see the baby born and to have become a great-grandmother. When my father died, I couldn't imagine what was going to happen to my mother. You know, of course, she'd been married to him for my entire life, and I had never known her without him. And so it was just impossible for me to envision what she was going to do and what kind of life she was going to have without him. But my mother constructed a really very remarkable second act for herself. She sold the house in Skokie, where we had grown up, and bought her apartment in Morton Grove, where she would live for the rest of her life. And she and Paul Wolf, became partners. And they were together for about, I think it was about 10 years until he died. And he was really her second husband in all ways but name. She continued her psychology career, and she made a lot of new friends, many of whom visited or called or texted during her illness so that she always knew that she was not alone and that people cared about her and loved her. And some of her friends are here today. I believe that this period was really the happiest time of her life, when my mother was most able to be herself and to create the life that she wanted to live. And she really made the most of that period of time when she was able to live her life the way she wanted to and on her own terms. Ultimately, that also included leaving her life on her own terms. When my mother's lymphoma recurred a few months ago, she was adamant and made it very, very clear to us that she did not want treatment. She wanted hospice care, and she wanted to be in her home. And she told all of us over and over that she had had a good life, she had no regrets, and that she was ready. And one thing that she was really also very afraid of is she did not want to suffer. She did not want to be in pain. She did not want to have a long, slow decline. And she was able to have that death that she had hoped for. She was at home. She was sharp until the very end. And her friends came by to visit her all the time, so she was never felt like she was by herself or all alone. She had extremely wonderful and loving care from Maria, from Sally, from Denise, and hospice. And her death was very calm and peaceful. And her life ended exactly in the way she had wanted, which, having witnessed it, I appreciate with such an incredible bracha. It was such a gift that she was able to not only live the life that she had wanted, but also to have the death that she had hoped for. And Mom, You and I didn't always get it right. But you mattered. You mattered to me, to Marcia, to Dad, to Sherwin, to Paul, to Jonathan, to your grandchildren, and to your many devoted friends, and every friend of yours who I have spoken to over the past few days told me how much they loved you and what a good friend you were and how much they were going to miss you. And mattering so much to so many people is a testament to the life that you lived and to the impact that you had on others. You inspired love and devotion, and you made the lives of other people better. And I cannot think of a better legacy for anyone to leave behind. And that is how I want to remember you.
I want to thank Mom for just everything she did for for Eileen and me and Marcia and our children. Doris was just a remarkable mom. I can't even say mother-in-law because she became my mom. I came to the U.S. In 1991. Made a sort of stuttering start to life here. I was going through changes when I met professional and personal ups and downs when I met Eileen, and then when I met Doris and Dennis, and they were unfailingly generous and kind. I don't know that they knew what their daughter was getting into, but they were just so kind and understanding and generous. And then in later years, Doris, as my parents passed away several years ago, Doris really became a mother to me. And I would call, and she would call, and I would find that her wisdom and kindness and her advice, really up until the last part of her life, I could always rely on her for a wise word or a kind thought, or she was unfailingly generous to other human beings. It was never about Doris. It was about other people, and she wanted to be kind and helpful to everybody. When I first came to the U.S., I wasn't immediately working while I was getting my employment authorization to work, and so I spent time with Doris and Dennis. Eileen was working then. I had more free time, and Doris and Dennis would take me on trips, and they were intensely proud Chicagoans. They loved the city. They were devoted Illinoisans as well, and we would travel and have fun together. They showed me parts of Chicago and Illinois that were really fun as a new immigrant and to spend time with them. Of course, growing up overseas, I had no knowledge of baseball, as one example, and Doris and Dennis bought me a child's book I was 27, I think, but this was a book written for young children that I still have on my bookcase, and would take me to Wrigley Field, and although Doris wasn't really a baseball fanatic, but Dennis was, and they both were so generous with their time and their love. So in many ways, I just think that I was blessed to have another mom, and I will always be grateful, and I just hope that that she knew that.
hope I can make it through this. Thank you all for coming today to honor my mother's life. I'm not really sure how to even begin talking about Mom. I just wish she were here. She'd have suggestions. Some would be good ideas I'd take gratefully. And if I'm being honest, others would probably just annoy me because I think they were so obvious that of course I'd thought of them. But the important thing is, she would be there doing her best to help. I know that because Mom has always been there for me, to share in good times, commiserate in bad, provide a hug, offer advice, discuss book recommendations, even though we had really different tastes, tell me how proud she was of both me and Eileen, and just love us unconditionally. In the approximately 40 years since I left for college, Mom and I talked at least once a week, every Sunday night. At first by phone, when long-distance phone calls were really expensive and Dad would be freaking out about the cost. Progressing through the 10 cents a minute years, with Dad still freaking out about the cost. To cell phones, when free nationwide calling was introduced, and eventually to Skype when I moved abroad. Mom stayed stuck on Skype even after the pandemic switched the rest of the world to Zoom and Teams. She really wasn't a technology person, despite the occasional FaceTime I forced upon her. So perhaps it's for the best that she will not have to deal with the discontinuation of Skype next week. When I think about the eulogy advice she'd give if I had thought to ask, I know she'd want both her daughters to know how much she loved us, even if she was not always sure how to show it. I know that she did her best every step of the way. She did so much for us. She planned birthday parties, always making that homemade chocolate cake that I loved as a kid, despite the hidden ingredient being 2 jars of Gerber baby beets. I know, it sounds disgusting, but trust me when I say it was really moist and delicious, except for those occasional spots where the beets didn't get fully mixed in. Eileen remembers that. Mom and Dad took us on road trips to places like Mammoth Cave, Washington, D.C., Williamsburg, the farm, or New Jersey for my cousin's bar mitzvahs. I don't think Eileen and I were the most fun on those trips, often fighting with each other in the back seat and getting car sick. But then again, Mom and Dad would be arguing in the front seat about finding the next turnoff, while Dad drove and Mom looked through those old-fashioned spiral-bound AAA triptych maps. But the arguments are secondary to the fact that we were spending time together as a family, something I value now, even if I didn't fully then. Mom always made sure we had dinner on the table, even after she went back to school to earn her doctorate. At the time, neither Eileen nor I appreciated leftovers. Now that I have to cook for myself, I do in a different way. And to this day, I have not figured out how Mom somehow managed to have leftovers of things that I swear we never had firstovers of. She made sure we had clothes to wear. She sewed a lot of them when we were really little. At the time, Mom and I argued constantly over the hand-me-down clothing that she insisted I wear. But we outgrew that when I outgrew the hand-me-downs. And many years later, we even laughed about it when I admitted that whenever she made me wear one particularly horrible, itchy shirt, I would sneak a different shirt to school in my bag, changing only just before she got home from work. Mom and Dad were both there, supporting me through all the ups and downs of my life, celebrating my high school, college, and grad school graduations. And in more recent years, Mom remained there for me as I earned promotions at work and made difficult decisions about moving to China and later to Vietnam. She was the kind of mom who supported me in making the decisions that were right for me, even when they put me on the other side of the planet from her. Thank goodness for that Skype, so we could see each other and talk to each other for free whenever we wanted. We supported each other, all 3 of us, when Dad passed away. I'll always be grateful to Mom for her company that year, driving me to and from California when I did my sabbatical at Stanford. She knew Dad would not want me to drive by myself all that way. So she put up with days on end, stuck in a car with cats she was allergic to, eating lunch while driving, since it was August and we couldn't leave the cat in the car, and sneaking the cat into a hotel room when we couldn't find a pet-friendly hotel at night. Of course, Mom was also by my side during my cancer treatments, from my first chemo to my after-surgery care, complaining that the house was too cold in summer in Virginia while I was having hot flashes. Anyone who's ever been to her apartment knows that it's usually around 80 in there. I have so many memories, more recent ones as well. I could go on. But instead of just talking about how Mom was there for me, I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for being there for my mom during her entire life, and now for being here for Eileen and me and the rest of our family during this difficult time. I'm so grateful to Dad and Paul for giving her such a wonderful life. She was indeed fortunate to have two men who loved her so deeply. I know how much she missed both of them. Over the past couple of days, I just keep picturing Mom, wherever she is now, trying to introduce Paul to a jealous dad. It's not going well. I want to thank Eileen for being there with Mom at the end. I know Eileen and Mom had their own challenges. Every mother and daughter do. But I also know how deeply Mom loved her and she loved Mom, and how delighted Mom was to have Jonathan join the family as the son she never had. I'm grateful to Maureen for keeping Mom laughing in her final years. Mom was so fortunate to have her as a neighbor and best friend, and to all of the other neighbors and friends in the building who came by and made sure that she knew she was loved. And I want to thank those who provided care and companionship for Mom during her final weeks: hospice, Maria, Sally, Denise, and others. You know, for being there when Eileen and I could not be there. And of course, to Mom, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for bringing me into this world, for raising me to be the person I am today, and for being both mother and friend to me throughout my life. I will miss you dearly.
Not sure there's anything left for me to say. All three of you did beautiful, and she knew. Doris asked me not to do all kinds of mushy things today. She didn't want me to do all kinds of religious prayers today. She wanted us to remember the zest and the joy she had for life, even in these last months of life. But your mother's always with you, always. And so I found this reading by a poet named Deborah Culver, which says that your mother is always with you. She's the whisper of the leaves as you walk down the street. She's the smell of certain foods you remember, flowers you pick, the fragrance of life itself. She's the cool hand on your brow when you're not feeling well. She's your breath in the air on a cold winter's day. She's the sound of the rain that lulls you to sleep in the colors of a rainbow. She's Shabbos morning. Your mother lives inside your laughter. She's the place you come from, your home. She's the map you follow with every step you take. She's your first love, your first friend, even your first enemy. But nothing on earth can separate you. Not time, not space, not even death. Doris worked for Social Security for about 25 years, but her dream had been to become a clinical psychologist. So as an older adult, as you heard, She returned to school and earned her degree and then worked as a clinical psychologist until she retired. I asked her once what she felt her greatest achievement in life was. She didn't even have to think. She said, being a mother. Okay. I said, what else? Then she was proud of pursuing and attaining her dream. After retiring, Doris couldn't just sit still, so she volunteered for the Morton Grove Park District. And she volunteered so well that they eventually started to pay her. She liked that. She made many friends and had close connections to her neighbors. She told me stories about all of you. She was an avid reader. Both the social worker and I talked books with Doris and even shared book suggestions. The last day that I visited, I was with her 2 days prior to her death. We found ourselves again talking about books, and she expressed feeling sad that she could no longer read. Her concentration would wane, and she said I would fall asleep. She had teased me about forgetting to bring her a book that we discussed, but then admitted she wouldn't have read it anyway. She and Dennis were married for 40 years. After his death, though, she found love again with Paul Wolf. Paul was not Jewish, and Doris said they enjoyed sharing each other's traditions and learning about each other's faiths. They laughed a lot. They learned a lot. And they remained bonded until his death. Doris felt that she had been blessed to have found two special men to share life with, and this left her with good memories. I always marveled at Doris's positivity. She had a positive attitude, even laughing and joking with me at our last visit. She looked at me and she said, "So?" I said, "What?" She said, "This is just taking too long." I said, "Well, I can't help you, so when you're ready, be ready." She said, "Okay, I'm just tired." That's fine. That's okay to be tired. During one of our conversations, I shared a reading with Doris called The Dash. And if you've never read it, it is written by someone called Linda Ellis. It's very long, so I'm not reading it. But the crux of the poem is about the numbers on the headstone, the date of birth, the date of death, but in between, there's a dash. What matters is not either date, but what you do with your dash. Doris was happy with all that she had accomplished in her dash, about relishing her role as mother and loving her children and her grandchildren with all of her being. She was proud of the work she did, the ways that she could help others in both of her careers. But she said, being mother to Eileen and Marcia brought her the most happiness. Through the ups and downs all mothers and daughters experience, and all the memories that the two of you created together with her. She was so proud of the women that you are. She smiled that bright smile, and if you've seen her smile, you know what I mean. That bright smile when talking about you and about her grandchildren. She was so grateful for Jonathan. See, she knew. Overall, she said, I've had a good life. In our last time together, Doris said very simply that she felt blessed and that she was ready to let go of this physical world and hoped that something wonderful was waiting for her. At this time, I will invite you, if you're able, to rise for the memorial prayer. And in your service flyer, following the chanting, I will invite you to read the English with me. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, המסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. עם קדושים וטהרים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת דבורה גיטל בת יצחק ורבקה שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים יסיריה בספר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה. ונאמר Amen. And we read together. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Doris France, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen. Please be seated.
Friends, this concludes our service here at the chapel. Interment will take place immediately at the family plot and Memorial Park in Skokie. Upon return from the cemetery, the family will be sitting Shiva at the France residence, 8300 Cali Avenue, Unit 504, until this evening at 6 p.m. For the rest of the Shiva, the family will be sitting at the home of Eileen and Jonathan in Silver Spring. The times are available on the folder you received on the way in. If you did not receive, there's some more available on the way out. And for those who are watching the live stream, that information is available on the funeral home website. Memorial contribution to Mrs. France's memory can be made to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. That information is on the same places as well. For those who wish to join the family in procession to the cemetery, one will be forming just outside the funeral home parking lot. While en route to the cemetery, please make sure your bright light, hazard lights, and your bright lights are on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, please obtain a orange funeral safety sticker, which can be placed on the inside portion of your vehicle, as well as a magnetic flag for the rooftop portion of your vehicle. Please drive as closely to the car in front of you as safety permits. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers. When I call your names, if you could please rise and stand next to Doris's casket. Jonathan Fink, Avital Fink, Asher Fink, Josh Dobnik, and Jeff Dobnik. At this time, if I could ask everyone to please rise as we escort the casket, the family, and the chaplain from the chapel.